Hello, my astrology family. This is Lada from astrolada.com. This is the most important and exciting month of the year, not just personally, but for the world, because the two planets, the two probably most intense planets, Saturn and Pluto, are changing signs in March. So there will be big world important events that you'll notice around March, maybe a little bit before, a little bit after. But on a personal level, this will be a game changer, many new beginnings in your life. Old problems will disappear and new exciting territories and problems will appear. Let's see what it's going to be like. I'll speak about each of the 12 signs. You'll come back to this video for many years, at least for the next 3 years, because I'll speak about how Saturn will influence you for the next 3 years and Pluto for the next 20 years. So please save this video to favorites, because you will need it. When things start happening, this will explain to you and give you perspective, so you don't feel overwhelmed, or so you feel like, wow, I'm on time, like a deja vu. This is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So this is an important video. And before I start, please do start with your ascendant. If you know your time of birth, start with your rising sign, also known as ascendant. If you don't know it, start with your sun sign and moon sign if you can, but the ascendant is the most important, I think, if your time of birth is correct. And then I'll follow if you're day born, the sun. Check the 3 if you want, but always for me the ascendant is it. And by the way, before we start, just to let you know, I'm doing a big webinar on Pluto in Aquarius. That will be at the end of February, the start of March. It's only $39. It will be 5 hours, and I'll walk you through how Pluto will affect you personally, because Pluto will be in Aquarius for the next 20 years, and I'll show you how, and you'll be able to see what areas Pluto will influence. Say Pluto will square your Mars, natal Mars, in 2036. What does it mean? Or Pluto will enter your second house and it will transit the second house cusp in 2025. What does it mean for you? Or Pluto will trine your Venus. What does it mean for your life, for your love life, and which year? So that will be a very personal webinar, but because I'll show you how you can calculate it and see it very easy, but at the same time very insightful for you to plan, because Pluto is the planet of the evolution of the soul. And if the most important changes on a spiritual and material level always happen through Pluto. So let's enjoy the videos. Taurus, rising, sun or moon, March 2023. Oh, what an interesting month, guys. Let's start with the first major event that is going to happen in March, and that's Saturn is moving from your 10th house, where it's been since the spring of 2020, what a pivotal time, till March 2023. If you want to see what kind of lessons you've learned and how you grew as a person over the last 3 years, watch the next sign, a Gemini, where I speak how they will be affected with Saturn in their 10th house. But you've just gone through Saturn in your 10th house, and you can hear, did those things happen to you? You can hear, how did I grow like that? What things you achieved? Because that was a very challenging aspect and transits for many of you. But now we're going to focus on Saturn from March 2023 till 2026, almost for the next 3 years almost, in your 11th house. And all those things will not necessarily happen in March exactly, but there is usually some kind of a symbolic event that happens, that circumstances start changing around you, and they give you a clue for the next 3 years almost, what you have to work on. And Saturn in the 11th house is actually supportive to Taurus, because it sends its so-called sextile aspects, which is gentle aspect. The energy is gentle coming from Saturn, even though Saturn is a harsh planet. And that will make Tauruses grow and mature, because Saturn is the planet of maturation, in a more natural, not such a forced way. While Saturn in the 10th house, maybe some of you were thrown into roles and responsibility that were a bit more forceful on you. Maybe that scared you a bit more. That was more maturation happened in a more, maybe let's say, painful way. But now it's going to happen in a more organic way because of the sextile aspect. And a lot of things that you begin over the next 2-3 years, they'll stay with you and they'll be implanted for you, and they would give long-term results for many years ahead, because anything started on the Saturn sextile to your sign is usually something long-lasting, something that happens again slowly and with effort, but which gives stable long-term results. And the 11th house is a very goal-oriented house. It's the house of our dreams and wishes and hopes and the things that we want society to remember us with. And this is what Saturn will reorganize and structure for you and slowly help you build over the next 3 years, 2.5 years. And Saturn, though, is a slow planet. It moves slowly, so you cannot push ahead with those goals and dreams and wishes very fast. They're not going to materialize like whoop, but they will gradually solidify into your life with your personal efforts. And for the past 12 or 14 years, since 2012, so 11 years, Neptune has been in your 11th house. And Neptune is a very kind of, let's say, disorganizing planet, the opposite of Saturn. So even if you had some of your dreams and goals and wishes, sometimes when Neptune is influencing your house of dreams and goals and wishes, it's very hard to make those things a reality, because Neptune is a planet that dematerializes rather than materializes, and Saturn is to materialize. So it will put some order. It will give you, like, you'll be able to finally make some kind of plan of action or of schedule, how step by step to achieve those goals and dreams and wishes, rather than just dream about them or daydream, idealize. Now you're gonna have to take, and you will take the practical steps to achieve some of those goals and dreams. But Saturn also has a very sobering influence. So certain goals and dreams of yours that are not realistic will gradually fall off from your priorities in the next 2-3 years, because they're unsustainable or unrealistic. Saturn will show you the reality. Maybe you've always wanted to be a singer, but you know it's a dream of yours, but Saturn will show you the harsh reality that maybe your vocal cords or something, or maybe that's not something to pursue. But at the same time, if it's something that is truly part of your path, like a goal and wish, truly part of your soul desire as well, Saturn will help materialize it by giving you objective step by, and it's not Saturn giving you, you'll do it yourself, but you'll be more able to organize yourself to stepwise climb that ladder to achieve this dream and goal. The 11th house is also your social circle. What kind of groups do you belong to on Facebook, or what kind of people do you follow in Instagram? 11th house is what kind of friends do you hang out with? And Saturn can even create some impediment there, or some situation that is disappointing, or that makes you slow down and take a step back. This is what Saturn likes, to take a step back and look at things more objectively, analyze them, because Saturn wants you to see each frame, like it slows down reality in that area of your life, so you can examine it more in depth and be more deliberate about who you surround yourself with. That's what can happen in that case, is that over the next 2-3 years, a lot of friends might fall off of your circle. A lot of people that you realize that they're just like a dead wood on you, or that they're just negative influence on you. You might block such groups. You might block yourself from following such people. You might even restrict your use of social media and connection with others so you can sit and observe for a few years here, 2-3 years. So you just leave the really important people in your life, the ones that are useful for you and you're useful for them as well, the ones that are constructive in your life rather than destructive. And I remember when Saturn entered my 11th house, very much within 2-3 months of that, I had a big actually I had a big confrontation with one of my closest friends. She had a big problem in her life, and and she confronted me. She said, "You are not there for me," and I realized it. So I really had to reconsider, if I wanted to keep this friend, how am I as a friend? So it's not necessarily also you judging your friends who to let in, but also seeing if you've been inconsistent with your friends, disloyal in some way, not there for them, you'll become very aware of them. They'll point it out to you. And I was like, first I was like, okay, I don't need this friend. If she's gonna react like that to me and block me, I don't need her. But then some time passed and I was like, I love this friend. Like, I want her in my life. So it humbles you, Saturn. So I humbled myself and I asked for forgiveness, and I've been trying to be a way more loyal friend. But some other friends, probably 80% of them, I stopped communicating with them, because it was a realization that those people were maybe a bit, I was allowing them too much. I was a bit too, they were maybe toxic, and actually life took me away from them. I didn't even have the strength to block. I'm not a person who blocks, who doesn't answer. I'm too sweet and nice. I don't know, if you naturally can block and whatever, yeah, that will be no issue for you. But for me, Saturn forced me. It's almost like it moved me. I totally changed my social circle. Not totally, I kept only the most important friends, but my social circle really dwindled during that time. So this is something that can happen, but the people that stayed in my life, they were loyal, they're long-term friends. And also I created some new friendships through work. Usually a lot of your social interactions and friendships during Saturn transiting the 11th house are limited more towards people that you can do something useful with, that is constructive, sometimes utilitarian as well. But they were limited to work interactions, and some of those people become friends and they became lifelong friends. But also there can be some more challenging people in your social environment. Saturn is not the easiest influence, but that's only so it can sober you up to keeping boundaries with others. Because for the past, as I said, since 2012, Neptune has been in Pisces and continues to be till 2025, at the same time when Saturn is living there. So maybe it allowed you to be too permissive with friends in your social circle, to let them take advantage of you, to manipulate you in some, maybe some people were, maybe there were more lies around you and you couldn't put your finger on it. Maybe there were pretend friends around you that are not very honest. Neptune can have such behaviors as well. And Neptune removes all barriers, removes all discrimination, and it's kind of like all embracing. But sometimes, and it's good, maybe we needed that, but now Saturn comes to clear up the mess of Neptune and to bring some reality to it. So you'd learn to put boundaries, you'd learn to recognize not just the solid sense of those around you and their potential, but their true constructive, productive roles that they play in your life. And if there's no such, you can remove them. So a lot of interesting things will happen, but still, again, as I said, Saturn is very supportive to you. As I said, it will help you fulfill gradually long-term goals. 11th house is also income to some extent, so for some of you that can indicate the need, some kind of reconstruction of where your income comes from, or extra efforts that you have to put on, or that you're working on some project that in the long term, maybe not immediately in the next 2-3 years, but you'll be doing the hard work, laying the foundations of this, that will give you long-term results for more stable income into the future. But you'll be doing the structural changes, and of course, to start doing those structural changes, many times Saturn can trigger it by some kind of a crisis or problem, and it might be connected with your income, with your, if you have business, the 11th house is you're following your clients as well, and that you have to reconsider who do you want to allow to be your client. There might be some kind of a more tense, critical, or crisis situation, or either, so you can figure out your priorities. Who do you want there in your social circle, in your business circle, in your client circle, and you gradually start restructuring that. A lot more other psychological and emotional and physical manifestation will happen, like people often work towards a title or an honor of some sort during that time, but I don't want to make this video 1 hour. So if you want to hear a lot more how Saturn in the 11th house, what is going to happen for you on the material physical level, watch my 2023 video for Taurus, where I go way more in depth there, and it's 3 hours almost 2.5 3 hours. Then the other big event that is happening is that Pluto is moving from your 9th house for the past 14 years, since 2008, or what was it, yeah, more than 14 15 years almost. It's been in your 9th house, and it's moving on March 23rd into your 10th house. And by the way, if you want to hear how Pluto in the 9th house, what it's been doing for you for the last 14 years, listen to the next sign again. Listen to the sign of Gemini, where I speak how they're going to experience Pluto in the 9th house, but you can see like, oh, how did I do with those lessons? Why is Pluto so important? Because Pluto is the final planet of our solar system. It's the boundary, and that's why Pluto rules the spiritual evolution of the soul. And Pluto is the slowest moving planet, so wherever it moves, and it will be for 20 years in your 10th house, starting from 2023 March, then those 20 years, the most important evolutionary goals of your soul will be happening in the 10th house. And all the other events that are happening in your life, whether it's birth of children, moving, divorcing, whatever, they will be all subservient, and they'll be all like serving and helping the mission of Pluto in your 10th house for the growth of your soul. So what is the 10th house? The 10th house is, what are you here to contribute to the world? What are you here like to do as a mission? So that will become of pivotal importance for you. That will become that you'll not be able to do a job just for the sake of doing it for the next 20 years, because it might feel unbearable. You'd be called to find your mission almost. You'd be demanded by the universe to find a mission, and because Pluto is such a passionate planet with a laser focus, that you can only use that planet for something that you're fully dedicated, fully committed, and fully impassioned by. So first of all, it can create certain havoc. I cannot tell you when exactly it will happen, but from March or this year, especially the first March, April, May, June, while Pluto is in Aquarius, and then it dips back into your 9th house, but for 2-3 months it stays there, you'd be given a glimpse of what are some of the themes you will be dealing with. But I cannot tell you when exactly this big change will happen. We'll have to calculate. That's what we'll do in my webinar for Pluto in the Aquarius, where we'll look which year it will happen, and I'll show you how to calculate it. And even you don't need to know any astrology, and what exactly it will mean for you, and what are the influences Pluto will have for you. It will be a huge webinar, and very insightful, because you can use it for 20 years ahead by knowing exactly when and what will happen. But when Pluto is in your 10th house, it will become pivotal for you to find your passion and your mission. You'll become obsessed with that, to the point that there's nothing else you can focus on. I just went through 14 years of Pluto in my 10th house. Pluto entered in 2008, and in 2009 I started my astrology, not 2009, but 2010. Within 2-3 years of Pluto entering my 10th house, I started my astrology career. I finally found my mission in life, because Pluto, as I said, it needs to be something you're fully dedicated to. I was forced into it. Pluto is a bit of a forceful planet. I was not ready. I didn't feel any power in me, but Pluto wants to empower you, and I was thrust into it because I couldn't work anything else, because I lost my job, And at that time in UK, if you're from Eastern Europe, you could only have your own business. So I was like, my visa finished and whatever, so I need to do my own business to stay here. And my husband forced me, like, you're gonna do astrology, you're great at it. I'm like, no, I felt no power, like I had no power in this world. And Pluto exactly wants to empower you to go and meet out the scary big world. This is the 10th house. It's like, oh, and Pluto is like, wants to thrust you in the limelight. Look, it's the top of the horoscope. You're here, Taurus, that's the top where it's most visible. Like to push you into the light, into the public sphere. Even if you're kicking and screaming like it happened with me, for some of you it might be more natural, more organic, not like with me. I was like, no, I don't want to do astrology. No, me on the camera, are you crazy? People will judge me, they're gonna laugh at me. Yeah, they laughed galore, but I gradually claimed that power, gradually. Now I can say, like, I'm very comfortable, I'm very happy. I felt like a rape almost when Pluto forced me in that career. I felt like I lost my career when Pluto first entered. I had a very cushy job till then, and suddenly, all this happens. Some crisis can force you into it. Or if you're very aware and whatever, it can happen by your own personal efforts towards that. But you're forced there to take up your mission, whether you want it or no, and you'll be so grateful after this finishes. But especially if you're in the wrong path, there can be some crises that are happening time after time in regards to your career, some clashes. One of the reasons I lost my job when Pluto entered my 10th house is I started having power clashes with my boss, because there were too many rules and so on, and I was never following them. They introduced new rules, and Pluto is like a bit of a dictatorial planet. And I never usually clashed so much with authority figures, but when Pluto entered the 10th house from my sun in Aries, I started becoming like so rebellious, not in a direct way, but like I'm gonna hide and do it anyway, and I lost so something can happen, and you might have confrontations with authority figures, with father figures, but especially these confrontations happen so you can take your power back and stop being afraid. And I'm not saying go and destroy such figures, that's a very wrong action, but you have to really choose your battles with Pluto, because usually Pluto is the powers in the others. The 10th house is the government, authority, bosses, fathers. You have to do it in a clever way, and you have to do it not in a manipulative way. No, that's no growing of your soul. You have to claim your power back, and I claimed my power back through becoming my own authority. So hopefully this is what's going to happen over the next 20 years for many of you Tauruses, especially Taurus rising or Taurus sun people. You claim your power, and you, even if you have, as I said, confrontations with such authority figures, power struggles. Mine were to such an extent that was even close to physical altercations with my dad, issues that I've always had with authority, with like my dad, for example. They, from childhood, they really intensified over the last 14 years with Pluto in my 10th house, because it's such concentrated power there. And my dad became super controlling when I was 30, so it's like a repeat from my childhood. But because I've always given my power away to authority figures, and now when I look back for the last 14 years is when I finally won my authority back. Sometimes I'll have to speak up and fight, and sometimes I'll have to say, no, enough, you cannot do that. But I did it not just because, but because I felt more empowered through the actions I contributed to the world. Because Pluto gives you true power, not some kind of power. From now on, I'm powerful. I'm not going to let the government tell me anything. I'm not going to let authority figures tell me anything. If you do that, you just end up in prison, or you end up fired, like I did at the beginning, or you'd end up almost in physical altercations, or you'd end up in a big problem with the government. So you have to really, Pluto is a planet that really plans and is strategic, but you take your power by, how do I say, in my case, it happened by becoming independent from the system. The 10th house is the system, and I wanted to beat the system. I wanted to win over the So I did it over 14 years. I became independent from the system, even though if they hear me, I'm still dependent. Everyone is to some extent, but I took out more of my power back Others can do it by establishing a career or social position that is that they pour their soul into it, and then nothing can take it from them, and that makes them feel empowered. So they now have the strength to confront authority and to be their own authority as well. So very interesting. So by some, whenever this transit hits most powerfully for you, depends what degree your ascendant is. We'll learn out when to see this, which year it will happen exactly over the next 20 years. This will be a time when your career totally transforms, where you have some clashes with power authority figures, but it's only so your inner authority can be born, and where you have to rebuild your life very likely in a new direction, like a mission or like a vocationally, and some crisis situation can happen so they can take you on the right path. And of course, 10th house is government, authority figures. You have to be, with Pluto there, you have to be as peaceful as the dove, as clever as the snake. I think there was such a saying in the Bible, because sometimes you can confront even evil authority, with the 10th house, evil bosses or very power hungry people, evil government representatives, even evil government dictates and decrees. You fight this cleverly. You fight it. You don't go on a open war with that, because Pluto, they have the power. They can really just like when I had Pluto in my 10th house, when COVID happened, Pluto was exactly making aspects to other planets in my horoscope, to my planets, in Aries. And that's when I felt so powerless by the censorship, by the government. I was in 2-year internal war, and I started gradually external war against the establishment. The 10th house is the establishment. You might be called even to such roles. Some of you might be called to leadership roles to transform the establishment, or even leadership roles in the establishment, in government positions, or if you have your own business, such kind of a leadership role, or in some kind of hierarchical structure where you are called to take some leadership role of structuring, of organizing, of even controlling others. You might be, it might be another manifestation. Well, I went on a kind of a battle there, and I saw how vicious it can be, because they can immediately ban your accounts. You have to be careful with authority, establishment, and so on. You'll be fighting a fight there, all right. But do it as peaceful as the dove, as clever as the snake. All right, enough. I can talk about this for hours. There's a lot more information on Pluto in your 10th house in Aquarius in my 2023 videos, which is 3 hours almost for your sign. I speak more about the material manifestations, what careers you'd most likely thrive in the next 20 years, what is the big mission that Tauruses will achieve for community, for society, for the world in their own personal life, a lot more there. So if you want the specific, there is a link. It's much more practical, but I wanted to explain to you the psychological dynamics of this influence. And then let's focus more specifically now on the month itself that is just relevant for this month. The month starts with a very positive bang. Jupiter conjunct Venus in your 12th house. The two benefics, wonderful planets in the 12th house. So this 12th house will be blessed for you the first 15, 17 days while Venus is still there with Jupiter. What does that mean? I would say that you'd notice the first half of the month, or the first 20 days of the month, there is a lot of possibilities for foreign travel. For some of you, this is the 12th house, to exotic countries or to faraway state or to a place you haven't been before. If you can plan this or go, fantastic. Another thing is there can be some spiritual revelations to you that come very easy, messages from ancestors. If you go to a psychic, you'd receive powerful instructions, very positive as well and empowering, because Jupiter and Venus are very nice planets, and truthful, because Jupiter is the planet of truth, and Venus can give you more self-esteem. Also, you can really enjoy some private time. The 12th house is the house of enjoying time alone or doing some spiritual activities that happen very easy. If you meditate, you can be granted easier access to meditative information from the invisible worlds. If you're an artist who downloads information and creates something imaginative, you can have a burst of inspiration and flow of inspirations. If you're just a normal, or if you're someone who works with spirituality, you can have a lot of spiritual ideas that come to you, or find right spiritual materials that are very uplifting, give you answers. If you go to counseling with psychologists, because this is a very psychological subconscious house, the 12, you can have some beautiful revelation, beautiful meditation, beautiful reframing of the past in a healing way, some kind of a liberation from more psychologically difficult feelings and emotions. Or you can be, or you can just mean that you have better dreams, or dreams that are erotic, I don't know, pleasant, or flying, or something that is, or even prophetic. Jupiter is prophetic. But there is a tinge of pleasure there as well, a tinge of the beauty in the dream world. You can also have something happen privately and hiddenly for you, something secret that gives you a lot of pleasure or joy, something that is more private. Or also another thing is, if you have any hidden vices, I mean drinking, kind of any addictions, Jupiter and Venus are not going to remove them, they're going to make you enjoy them more, or maybe even have some revelation, and if you want to stop something, to easily release it without resistance, because they're easy planets. There can be also some secret that appears, a secret relationship or something. Plus there can be some more spending, but it's spending on something that you really enjoy as well. And also there's a lot of focus in your 11th house. Saturn moves there, but the sun is there. The more immediate influence you'll feel is the sun. And Mercury will be there, most socially active period as well, even though you'll need some periods of introspection because of this 12th house energy as well. But from the 17th, Venus moves into your sign in Taurus from the 17th of March till the end of the month. So things really start becoming easier for you then. 17th of March, you notice onwards till the end of the month, you become more agreeable, you come into your power more, you can more attractive, you can attract more Venusian experiences like money, enjoyments, pleasures, good food, entertainment, even more money to some, I said that already, and even relationships and pleasures of some sort. Well, Mars is for the last month. It started since August 2022, for the last month in your second house. So towards the 27th, 8th, the very end of the month, it was moving away from the second house. So it means any problems or preoccupation with money, finances, resources, anything to do with teeth, with eating, with what you put in your body, or self-worth and self-value, these problems disappear, they're gone, they're resolved. Everything is, that you still continue in March to move ahead with such things and to be focused on and to put energy. As I said, security, family as well is the second house, financial, material stability, or matters of money and resources of some sort, or supplies, but they are not stressful, or they're moving ahead according to plan, they're getting resolved, and then they fully end up, you see the conclude, or you see the results of it, and then don't bother it towards the end of the month. So I think especially the second part of the month, guys, you're very protected. Venus will protect you. Anything beautiful, pleasant you want to do, it will go well, even for romance, and anything that is external, of the external world that brings you comfort and pleasure will go well there. Thank you so much, and yes, I'm sure you'll have to come back to this video for a few years to listen to Pluto and Saturn.